Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the latest live stream, this time from the Las Vegas Strip. And you can see I'm joined by Michael Trager from Travelzork, and you can see Bellagio in the background. And what a fantastic, iconic property that is. And it's great to see it. And I've also got Steve White from Las Vegas, UK on Twitter, who also does the podcast with Michael. After my live streams with Richard Wilk last week, I wanted to really see it, A, from a Strip perspective, and B, from a traveller who's actually attended opening weekend. So Michael very kindly agreed to do this. So we're going to get literally from the horse's mouth exactly what it's like on opening weekend. So thanks everybody for joining us. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves first. If you know, we'd like to start.
Do you want to go first, Steve?
Yeah, I can go first. I'm Steve, Las Vegas UK on Twitter. You've probably seen me on there because I tweet, obviously, a lot. I'm also the co-host of Zorkcast on the Travelzork website, which you can check out. We do a couple of podcasts every week. All about Vegas, all about... oh, my God, what is that noise in the background there?
It's basically a case of Patron that they're moving somewhere.
Can
you bring me one of those bottles of Patron? it's literally like 24 bottles of Patron that he just rolled by me. If you're curious. Okay,
I'll let Michael speak now.
Hey, yeah. So I'm Michael. I started the Travelzork website quite a few years ago. It's based on travel loyalty, casino, and casino loyalty. It's pivoted quite heavily to the casino loyalty in Vegas world because that's one of my biggest passions. And I love Vegas content. I especially love Vegas history and Atlantic City history. So I wanted to be here because this is a historic occasion because Las Vegas casinos never close. And I really wanted to experience the reopening. So I did arrive for the reopening on the 4th of June. This is the second time I'm experiencing a historic reopening because I also experienced the historic reopening of the Atlantic City casinos when they closed down due to a government problem a couple of years ago in New Jersey. So I am an expat. I have lived in London for just over 3.5 years. So I was able to come to Las Vegas as a U.S. citizen. I decided that I wanted to make my travel here as seamless as possible. So basically there are no flights from London to Las Vegas nonstop. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people from the UK are very well aware of that. I decided to fly nonstop into LAX on British Airways. I did that on the 4th of June. I only bought the ticket a week before. I booked my room also a week before. Caesars Rewards comp. And it's been a very interesting experience. I'm also very much so an aviation geek. So I love flying. I love airports. I love everything about planes. So the first thing that hit me on this trip was I've never seen London Heathrow Airport Terminal 5 the way that I saw it. Literally barren. Nobody anywhere. It's really creepy. And I'm going to be doing a follow-up article on Travelzork. We just did the Vegas news today, but I'll be dropping an article in a day or two with a bunch of pictures from Heathrow. And it was really, really strange. I will tell you, there's no way to get through security at Heathrow Airport right now. Basically, got through security. There were only 2 shops open in all of Heathrow Airport in Terminal 5A concourse. I think it's W.H. Smith and Boots. And I basically went to the gate. I was on a very new 787-9, really nice airplane, really pretty large. On that airplane, we only had it booked with just under 40 passengers. I think we had 37 passengers on that plane, and I think approximately 12
were these all Americans, Michael, or?
From what I could see, it was mostly Americans. but it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
And in terms of you getting on the plane, was anything different to your normal experience in terms of check-in, temperature tests, social distancing? Was anything different getting on the plane or during your flight over that you wouldn't normally experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's a new procedure. British Airways requires you wear a mask in flight for the entire flight. British Airways warns you about that most masks are only good for 4 hours and that you should bring enough masks with you. Unlike Virgin, British Airways is not supplying masks. The rule is that you're supposed to wear a mask for the entire flight. Obviously, when you're having a drink, you have to take your mask down. On boarding, they have a procedure where you basically have your mask. You're supposed to take your mask down and hold up your passport and I guess give your boarding pass. That's all pretty usual. They don't make a big deal. It's when we talk about distancing, it's very easy to have distancing when you have a plane that holds 260, 280 people and you only have 30 some odd people on the plane. So the plane is basically naturally distancing because you have so few people on the plane.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens when air travel picks up and you've got 300 people trying to get on those planes and how they're going to manage that.
Yeah, I'll tell you one aspect. So I'll go just real quick. Just understand that everything is a moving target right now. British Airways has pretty much eliminated in-flight services. Everybody in all classes of service, first class, club, whatever, you get a pickle and cheese sandwich. You can have some orange. They have about 4 or 5 different juices and water, and they have some biscuits and some other things and tea, and that's it. No alcohol. I don't even think they had any soft drinks. I mean, it's really a minimal service. I didn't really get no choice. They give you a pickle and cheese sandwich. They give you some other little snack when you land. So if you are going to go in a premium cabin like club or first class, you basically are not getting the premium experience. Basically at landing, they have a rule in the United States now is that you have to get off the plane in groups of 5. So basically, everyone stayed distant in the aisle, and you get off the plane in groups of 5. Prior to getting off the plane and earlier in the flight, you're given a health form for the United States. The health form basically says, have you been to any of these countries? UK's on that list on the bottom. Have you been sick? The usual kind of things. Have you been sick? Have you, all that kind of thing. And where are you going? And so you fill out that form. You get off the plane in groups of 5. That's totally fine because when you only have 36 people, groups of 5 did not take very long. You are met at the jetway with this CDC people who basically meet you and do a short interview. They take your health form, they look at your destination, and then they send you on your way, or they decide that you need additional medical screening from what I know. For me, it was really quick. I wrote on the form, I was going to Caesar's Palace and the Caesar's Palace address. They didn't seem to bother anyone that I was landing in Los Angeles and I was doing that. Shortly after that, you go up an escalator, you're met by another person. That person gives you a very, very small 4-minute talk, basically saying that since you are traveling from areas with COVID, you are more likely to potentially be sick or get sick. Here's a brochure. We just want you to be aware of this. And take the brochure with you and show it to them when you exit immigration. I have global entry, which British citizens can also have, which allows me to just use a kiosk. I went through the kiosk on global entry. I got out. I showed them my global entry slip. I showed them that I had the health form, and I was off to Avis. Whole process from getting off the plane and out the door, because I had hand baggage only, I don't know, 15 minutes, 12 minutes. I wasn't rushing.
So a question from Stewie 2210. So in terms of how much you paid.
Yeah. So the return.
I mean, what were the prices like when you booked up? You booked last minute.
1 week before, the World Traveler Economy Class fare was about £670, and the World Traveler Plus fare was about £1,000 return.
The prices for BA premium cabins have not come down. They've stayed the same despite the changes in service. Generally,
yeah. The price. Yeah, the price for club and first class was off the charts. I think £8,000 return. And the only reason why I bought World Traveler Plus is because I wanted to be able to upgrade with Avios to Club for the flight home so I could get a lie flat. I didn't care on the flight out. I knew it was empty, but you can't upgrade from economy to Club. You have to upgrade from World Traveler Plus. So that was worth it to me because I wanted to use the Avios. And it's really just the Avios and another 20 pounds. And I wanted from LA to London, it's nice to have the lie flat seat and the bedding.
Okay, so you left the plane, you got in your Palace, right? So you're in Caesar's Palace, Michael?
Yes. So yeah, I drove here, some LA traffic, and then I checked in at Caesar's Palace. Before checking in at Caesar's Palace, they do a temperature check. I use the Diamond and 7-star room, but at the front desk, they do the same. They basically do a temperature check, and then you can go check in. Check-in is contactless, which, I mean, I don't know how, I mean, you still hand them your credit card, so that's a little odd to me. And the check-in process was pretty seamless, but there are some changes to your stay currently, which people will be very curious about. There is no longer housekeeping. So you get no housekeeping service for your entire stay.
So that could be a problem for people staying for, say, 2 weeks, 10 days coming from the UK.
Yeah. Well, I'm here for 6 nights. So you get no housekeeping. You can call for towels. So they'll give you more towels and amenities, but they will not come in your room to clean. There is no room service. That's another big thing for people. Mm-hmm. So no housekeeping, no room service. Seems a lot less full service. I think that probably also for those who don't have the status and the waiver of the resort fees probably rubs them even worse. Even though the resort fee didn't really cover things like housekeeping, it probably bothers you to be paying a resort fee and not even getting, you know, amenities like housekeeping and, you know, the option to get room service.
So a question here from Lad in Las Vegas. Are there less coffee machines, etc., or is that pretty much standard?
What was the question again?
Are there less amenities in the room? So safe machines, etc.
Yeah, I mean the amenities in the room. The rooms are sealed before you get in it, so they have a seal on the door so that you know no one's been in the room. The mini bar was empty, but you know the problem is I haven't stayed in Augustus Tower recently, so I don't know if they've emptied out the mini bars or if that was for this. I have a feeling they probably aren't filling up the mini bars anymore. Yeah, I don't know. These rooms, I don't. You know, I'm one of those people who doesn't ever have coffee in the room, coffee or tea in the room, so I don't even look at that. All of the other amenities are standard. I mean, I'll tell you one of the tough things about Caesars, and I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with them. They're always adding and removing amenities all the time. So when I stayed at Augustus, you know, a few years ago, they had great, you know, mini bar and all that kind of stuff. But I think some of that's changed over the last couple of years. But everything seemed a little standard. I thought it was a little silly that they only had 2 towels in the room, you know, which I think if they're not doing housekeeping, maybe they should splurge a little and give you 8 towels. But, you know, otherwise, all that seems to, the room seemed clean, but not obsessively clean. And I noticed some glass shelves in the bathroom that were dusty. And that seems a little odd to me for a room that has not been in service since March, if they're going to really clean these rooms. And remember, they're only aiming to be at 50% capacity. So they're only cleaning half the rooms, and they sure as heck had a lot of time. But I don't know, maybe there's other sprays or things they did in the room. They do not give you any clarity of that on check-in. The only thing they tell you at check-in is that the rooms need to be inspected and cleaned and sealed. So they make a big point of saying, this is the kind of room you have. This is the bedding. This is the location. We are not going to be able to change that room for you. So if you get up there and then want to come back and say, I want the one with 1 king bed instead, they sort of alluded to the fact that this is going to be a real problem because they might not have that room and you might have to wait a long time. I'm sure if there's a true problem with the room, but that's something to be aware of, because a lot of times you didn't worry about it. If you got up to a room and you thought the room wasn't nice, you went back and said, this doesn't really meet my needs.
No, sure. Now, in terms of your overall check-in, Michael, how long did it take you from arriving at Caesars to getting into the room? Was the check-in longer than usual? The same?
Well, one of the things that I found to be really strange, well, not strange, I mean, it makes sense, but I thought was a little strange for me is I'm used to using valet parking, and all valet parking is discontinued in Las Vegas now. So you must self-park, which is also more of a pain with your bags because there's nothing better than just dropping off at valet and getting out with your bags. And of course, the parking garage from the Augustus Tower is far. So that was a little strange. The regular front desk had a queue with about, I don't know, it looked like 10 or 15 people. The 7-star and Diamond room was very, very empty. But remember, I landed at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, hit LA traffic and drove. I did not get here till after 8 o'clock at night, but it was still the first day. It was the 4th. But it didn't seem crazy. But remember, everything is 50% occupancy. And I've got to imagine a lot of people wanted to get here earlier in the day because if you were coming here, you wanted to be here for the opening, the opening of the casino earlier. Obviously, I wasn't willing to come in the day before to do that. And I was more than fine being able to basically say that I was here on the first day, and that was what my goal was.
Michael, would you say that it is 50% occupancy, or would you say it's a little bit less than that, or?
I think, the problem now, and I had this conversation with somebody recently, is one of the problems with occupancy is going to be that the cancellation policy is now 3 p.m. of the day, and the cancellation policies are very lenient. So I think they're going to book a little bit higher because it's so easy for people to cancel now, whereas it wasn't so easy for people to cancel. So I'd venture to say a lot of people driving in or with last minute changes. So, they're just very, very lenient with the cancellation policy. But I would say the casino, to me, nothing seems extremely full. It's hard to gauge because the hotel towers are big, but I'll give you one of my gauges is the elevators. You're only supposed to have 4 people to an elevator in each corner. I have not been in an elevator yet since I got here on Thursday night with more than 2 people. So I've never had a situation where there were like 6 people waiting to get in an elevator. So it's got to tell me that the occupancy isn't that crazy.
And are all the towers open? Do you know?
I think at Caesars all the towers are open. I'm pretty certain they are. Octavius is open, Nobu is open, Augustus is open, Forum. I'm pretty sure all the towers are open, actually.
Right. Quick question from Hull Calif. Are Uber and Lyft still operating? We had this the other day, actually, but are you aware whether they're picking up as normal?
As far as I know, they are. I don't think that's an issue. I don't think that's an issue at all. I mean, I think you need to, most Uber and Lyft drivers are going to want you to wear a mask, but that's similar, as far as policy and the rules. I know the rules are not consistent in Las Vegas about masks. So there is not one set of rules. So I can tell you a lot about the Caesars rules. Basically, at Caesars, the only time you are required to wear a mask is when you're at table games, to the best of my knowledge. You are not required to wear a mask while you're in a hotel. You're not required to wear a mask in a restaurant, near the restaurants. You're not, I don't think you're required to wear them, as far as I know, at the slot machines. And the signs specifically say table games. So if you're playing blackjack, you're playing craps, and you're at the table playing, you have to have a mask on.
Now, the interesting thing that we spoke before we went live, and we spoke about the fact that you wear a mask at the table games, but in theory, if you're smoking, you have to walk away from the table to have a drag on your cigarette.
Yes.
And if you're drinking and you want to swig your bud or whatever, you have to go away, lift the mask, and drink, and then go back to the table game. That's correct, right?
That
seems incredible to me. That seems really weird.
That is correct at craps. So I do not play. I'm only a craps and baccarat player. So basically at craps, in theory, you're supposed to stand 2 meters away, but that's impossible. So you basically stand as far away from the table and you take a drink, and you stand as far away from the table and have a cigarette. Now here comes the inconsistent properties. Caesars is allowing smoking at the craps tables. Flamingo is not allowing smoking at the craps tables. So this is the stuff that's a little inconsistent. Some of the other stuff that's details that I'm curious about, Caesars is using glassware on casino floor. So you still get your drink in a really nice glass. Flamingo is all plastic, though I don't know if Flamingo is all plastic all the time because I didn't go there that often. But there's a lot of things that are inconsistent. And I asked them last night at Flamingo at the dice table. I said, you know, they allow smoking at Caesars, and they're like, yeah, and we don't allow smoking here at the craps table. So you just have to be aware that the rules, you know, even within the same property, are going to be inconsistent. And it is a really awkward thing at the table to, you know, have a drink because you're supposed to have your mask on for active gaming. And basically, you know, when you're supposed to have your mask on for active gaming, it's unusual to pull your mask down, have a drink, put it up, put things on your ear. It's just an awkward kind of experience. But I really wanted to gamble for a significant enough amount of time to really understand what I'm more used to it, but this is a good time where we say that's another thing that changes. Some casinos have plexiglass and do not require masks. Caesars does not have plexiglass and does require masks. Once again, inconsistencies on the properties, and that's something very important to be aware of. So be really careful if anyone tries to tell you this is the rule for Vegas. I would be extremely skeptical about that, and I believe these rules are a moving target and will be continually changing over the next weeks and months. So just be careful when people speak with authority as if it's something that's happening in the entire city.
And plans seem to change.
I'll tell you what. Sorry, go on, Steve.
Should I take a little walk?
Yeah, go on, take a walk.
Okay, I'm going to walk through. I have to.
Timothy Bossier says, yeah, go for it.
I might be losing my AirPods. I might be losing my headphones, so I might have to use the speaker in the on the phone, unfortunately. But you'll get some good views now. And this is going.
As you walk, Michael, could you just explain which hotels are currently open and which ones are due to open? Because I wasn't sure when I logged on tonight. So for the viewers, which ones are open and which ones are scheduled to open and when?
Sure. So Caesars Entertainment Strip properties. Caesars is open. Flamingo is open. Those were the Caesars and Flamingo were the opening properties. Then Harrah's opened. Did I get that? Yes. Caesars, Flamingo, Harrah's. So that's basically what you have open for Caesars. For MGM, you have Bellagio, MGM, New York. Excalibur opens this week. And did I miss anything, Steve?
No, Excalibur is June the 11th. There's rumors of Aria for 4th of July, but that's just rumors at this point.
Yeah, so that's a. I mean, I thought the Flamingo was an interesting choice. You know, I mean, that's. So I guess they've got the mid, and also originally when they announced the opening, it was going to be Flamingo and Caesars, and then they added Harrah's. Harrah's is the next. As far as I remember, Harrah's opened on the 5th.
Yeah, just to add to that as well, I heard today that MGM are planning to open properties on almost a between a bi-weekly, monthly basis, depending on how things go. So Park MGM, Mandalay Bay, etc. Sort of hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll see everything open, but who knows? That could change. Obviously, this is a fast-moving situation.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a moving situation. Can you still hear me? So my AirPods died. Can you hear me okay?
It's all good. Good. Sorry, Steve, I'm cutting you off slightly here with the question. Your head is peeking over the top, but question from Mr. and Mrs. K. Are people actually adhering to distancing just a regular night out in Vegas? It concerns them that as soon as a few drinks are down, there will be no common sense, which is a very interesting question. Bear in mind what's going around the whole world at the moment with protests and God knows what. What's going on? Yeah, when you get to midnight or 1 a.m., what's been your experience, Michael?
Well, I'll have a little bit of commentary on that. At this point in the opening, they're so short-staffed on employees that the cocktail service isn't that fast. The first night at Caesars, there was no cocktail service after 2 a.m., or so it seemed that way at the dice table. So it's hard to have too much. The second night, the service got much better. I think the difference, one of the main differences right now is probably your age demographic on the Strip, which is going to be much, much different than downtown. Remember, you've got no clubs, you've got no pool parties. There isn't really a party scene. In many cases, the table minimums are higher than they would regularly be at night. So it's just, and you also have fewer people at a table. They also enforce the fact that you can't have people hanging around with you at the table. Now, that's a little bit selective on how they enforce that, but basically, you're not supposed to have 4 people behind you at the dice table or someone standing behind you at the blackjack table. They might let it slide for like a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of situation, but basically you just don't have those kind of crowds. But that also varies a lot. One of the funniest things that we didn't know what to do at the dice table is that when you hit a point, you often high-five someone if you become friends with them at the table. And one of the things that we did is we went to high-five, and then we pulled back because we're like, okay, we can't do this. And then we said, okay, we're going to do this. And then we got the hand sanitizer. We both hand sanitized. So our method was to high-five and then sanitize our hands.
Yeah, well, it's a learning experience, Michael. It really is. A message from Keith: are the Diamond Lounges open in Caesars?
The lounges are absolutely not open, and I haven't been given a firm date on that yet. I think that's very disappointing, but that probably has to do with staffing. But that's something I would definitely, that's something that's going to be happening. But I haven't gotten a date that I feel comfortable enough with. So I'm not going to say they're going to be open this month. I think you're just going to have to wait and see.
So just to say, we've got 532 people in the chat, which is quite something, actually. I never expected so many. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I think this is fantastic.
It's a really
for anyone considering going to Vegas and visiting the Strip over the summer. Yeah, look at this. This is what you want to see, right?
Hey,
this is making me
love it now. Okay, so moving on from your hotel experience, Michael. Moving on from your hotel and flight experience, how have you found the gambling as a whole? You've been there a few days now. How have you found the gambling as a whole?
I mean, if you play craps, and remember, I'm a craps and baccarat player, so I can't speak to blackjack. You only can have 6 players at a craps table. In a lot of ways, that's really nice because you have a lot of room at the craps table, and that's something that you often don't have. The disadvantage is that you can't often get on a craps table. Not all the craps tables are often open, and the table minimums at Caesars have been 25 and 50 on the craps table. Last night, Flamingo was mostly $25 tables, and then I found one $15 table. But remember, you've got a rather large table. You have a rather large table you're playing at with only 6 people. So it's actually, that part of it is a sort of luxurious experience because you have more space than you've ever had before on a full evening.
There was a question I just saw in the chat that was asking about benefits for Diamond and 7 stars, because you mentioned the lounges were shut. What benefits took place, do you know?
A lot of benefits have been curtailed. One benefit that people like is at Starbucks as a 7-star, and I also believe as a Diamond, you can cut the line. They've discontinued things like that. The other thing people are going to be really upset about, no more Diamond and 7-star lounge at restaurants. So, when you would go to Cafe Americano and there'd be a line of 15 people and you could go to the Diamond line, discontinued. No Diamond and 7-star lines as of now for any restaurants or anything. So you've sort of lost a benefit.
And the spa and everything is shut, right?
The spa is shut. The pool is open.
Okay.
Have you been to the pool yet, Michael? If so, how is that?
I have not been to the pool yet, and all that I've heard is that they practice distancing.
Okay.
I think they're socially distancing at the pool too, aren't they? The lounges.
And that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy to do with less occupancy. Because remember, the pool is occupied by hotel guests. If the hotel's at 50% occupancy, the pool should not be that big of an issue, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's see a couple of views of the strip for all the folks watching. 524 of them. Everyone wants to see a bit of Vegas live on a Sunday night or a Sunday morning, depending where you are. I tell you what, I cannot wait to be back. I cannot wait to be back. How about you, Steve?
How's that? Can you see that okay?
That's good.
It does seem to be a lot less traffic because you have fewer properties open.
Yeah. Okay, quick question from David Spring. What percentage of restaurants are open at the moment, Michael? Have most reopened or are some still closed?
Most of the
small
most
limits
of
the distancing, etc.
Most of the fine dining restaurants at Caesars are open, but you have to also remember you're also going to run into the 50% capacity thing here. That is a rule that's pretty consistent at all the restaurants from what I hear in Vegas, that they're all operating at 50% capacity. So you definitely are going to want to make reservations. I went to Old Homestead Steakhouse and, there were a decent number of people there. One of the interesting things now is the restaurants are so quiet because they have, even when they're at full capacity, they have half the number of people. So I think that's really interesting.
And do you have to make a reservation for restaurants or?
Yeah, I pretty much so. You need to make reservations for everywhere. I think properties like Wynn are saying that reservations are required. When someone says reservations are required, I always wonder if you show up and they have space, but I don't think I would risk it on a Friday or a Saturday night. But I didn't look at Caesars. It didn't seem to be the food court was open, but you know what? I'm not exactly sure about that. The Cafe Americano is 24 hours. The Starbucks is open. So it seems to be quite a bit is open.
Okay, question from Sean M. Get to the real question. Are the beers flowing at the casinos, Michael? Get to the proper question.
You know what? The drink service at Flamingo and Caesars, my first night at Caesars, the opening night was a problem. But my second night at Caesars, let me just put it this way. My second night at Caesars at the dice table, I wound up winning, but I didn't remember the exact story of what was going on. I had a pretty good idea, but the double Woodfords and the beers were definitely flowing, and they also were at Flamingo. So I don't think you really have to worry about that. And they're going to keep adding more staff. But remember, the process of adding back staff is not completely seamless. And that's something important to remember. Most of these staff are furloughed, but the problem is they can't just call them back. They need to have COVID tests clear with HR, and then they can come back to work. And that's been some of the problem with opening up tables and stuff. I think they do have more demand, but it's not like they can just call people up as if it's their day off to just show up for work the next day. So there is a little bit more process. But I would say that's going to work itself out within a couple of weeks. So I wouldn't worry about that unless you're coming in the next week or so.
It's only going to get better, isn't it, over time, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just in terms of tipping, Michael, I spoke with when I did the stream with Richard on Friday. In terms of tipping with the cocktail waitresses, they'll accept cash. It's as normal with that, is it? Or they won't accept cash? How does it work?
No problem tipping the cocktail waitresses. And this is where we go when I was saying to you, a little bit of this is possibly like safety theater, right? Because you know, the dice are being sanitized at the dice table continuously. The player spots are being sanitized. The stick, whenever the dealers move, it's being sanitized. But the chips aren't consistently being sanitized. You're still tipping cocktail waitresses and stuff. So it's not, I'm not so sure. You know, I mean, I would say it's all positive. One of the things that's very interesting or not interesting to some people is, especially at craps, it really slows the game down. All the sanitizing makes it the slowest craps game in the entire world. If you're a comp person and you want to earn more comps, that's really wonderful. If you're impatient at craps, it's going to drive you crazy.
Yeah. Okay, well, so what happens if you want to play at a table, Michael, and it's full? Is there a queue? Have you come across that yet? Question from JC.
Yeah. So usually players at the craps table will make it known, you know, like he was here first, and they'll linger a little bit, but they're really not supposed to linger. So it's a little complicated. The biggest problem that I find with craps, since it's, you know, remember at a blackjack table, they only have 3 chairs. So there's no way someone could take a seat if the 3 chairs are occupied. At craps, you're standing up. So the problem at craps is somebody will come up and try to just play, and they'll be like, no, sir, you know, the table is full. And one guy the other night, they actually called security on. He's like, I've got $10,000 here. I want to play. There's a spot there. I want to play. And they said, sir, it's only 3 people on one side, 3 people on the other side. There's no way we can bend that rule. So it's going to be frustrating to some people, especially for craps, because it's just the kind of game that, you know, it's just the kind of game where you have that. And as you can see, Gabi is open, but Paris is closed.
Oh, that's interesting. I love Mon Ami Gabi, but interesting that's open, but Paris is closed. So you must have to walk through Paris to go to the entrance, right?
I don't know. We could go find out, though.
Maybe you can go up through the...
Hey, walk. That's a fantastic restaurant there. Love it there.
Best place for watching the fountain.
Look at that for a view. Come on, Bellagio. I'm killing myself here. I'm in deep darkest Croydon. I mean, really.
So it looks like, I don't know, this might be patio seating only.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like you go in up through the patio, maybe.
Yeah, this
is
regularly emergency exit.
Okay.
So it looks like you have to go in through the patio because look, there are barricades up over here.
Yeah. That was fantastic. Really good. Exactly what I wanted to see, really. And what Steve
and look,
or Michael,
you can see Hex is all. Yeah.
So any idea when Paris is opening?
I haven't heard a word about that. Steve, have you heard about that? I haven't actually heard a peep about Paris.
No, I haven't heard about that either.
Another quick question from John Arthur. How are poker tournaments now being organised? Have you seen poker rooms opened, Michael?
No, the vast majority of poker. I mean, everyone was saying the other day that there was no poker. I think there is some poker, but there's definitely not poker at Caesars. Sportsbook, the Caesars Sportsbook is closed, but the Harrah's Sportsbook is open. Poker is tricky because, you know, you need the ability to have the full table. So I'm not a poker person, but I know that's really problematic. So this is interesting. Look at how it's all barricaded at Paris.
Yeah.
On the poker thing, Golden Nugget has poker now from yesterday, I think, and Venetian, I think, is a poker room is open too.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Good info, Steve. Okay, now
So you've probably never seen Paris this empty.
No, never. So in terms of your comps, Michael, a frequent visitor, in terms of Marshall's question here about whether offers and comps will be in the short, medium term, were your comps better to go back now than you were expecting, or about the same?
I could give you a pretty good data point because I'm not a really big Caesars guy. I regularly would usually stay at Paris, and I would not get Caesars comp. And I booked Caesars as soon as they announced they were opening, and I got the comp for 5 nights that I regularly wouldn't get. So taking on everything, and I pay pretty close attention to my accounts, that obviously means that they've lowered the criteria. But once again, this is a really tough thing to talk about, because did they lower the criteria for the first week? Are they lowering it from there? It's tough to tell. But I would say you probably are going to be in a better situation with your marketing offers, not a worse situation, even with the lower occupancy.
And a great question here in terms of Triple Ripple. Michael's views of Las Vegas have just made 500 plus people want to book a flight to Vegas. I'm sure Richard will put everybody up anyway. Perfect. So in terms of your gambling, Michael, have you just played craps only? I saw you played a bit of slots earlier. How did you get on?
I did play a bit of slots, and it's exactly what you would expect. Machines are turned off. So if you had a bank of 4 machines next to each other, the 2 in the middle would be turned off and the ones at the ends would be turned on. So that really seems to work very well to me, because you pretty much can't sit down next to anyone. It's impossible because you don't have 2 slot machines that are turned on next to each other. Another thing that's interesting is the bar tops are open, like the bar games are open, and that's the same thing, every other game open. So there was some fear that the bar top games would be closed, but that does not seem to be the case.
That's interesting, actually.
So I think slots works very.
Good question from Gaz Dunn. Keep going, Michael.
What was the question?
No. It was a question for me. You keep going about slots and what you were saying.
Oh, okay. No, I just think the slots, it seems to work pretty well. And the only thing that I've heard, but I haven't, obviously I'm alone, so I'm not doing this myself. I hear they will turn, if it's like a couple together, they will turn on a machine, a machine next to another machine for you to play next to each other. But that seems to work pretty well.
Okay.
There's smoking, drinking at the slots, and Caesars is really clear on their little message on the tables that says a mask must be worn at table games. I have not seen anything that says a mask must be worn at slots. I think they're just not really worried about it because you're alone at the slot machine, and obviously the employees that serve you come over in a mask. So I haven't seen that. I pretty much a lot of people at the slot machines, I didn't notice people wearing masks. With regard to masks, I would say less than 50% of the people are wearing masks, except for when they're required to be wearing them at table games. I think that would be fair. Something less than 50%.
Has there been any indication of how slot machines are being cleaned and sanitized? Like, if you go up to a machine, how do you know it's been cleaned?
Yeah, you don't.
Okay.
So that's a really interesting thing. But I popped around mostly for the benefit of Steve, because he's a horrible influence, this slot stuff. I popped around to maybe 6 different slot machines, and nobody ever came over to clean it. And I had no idea who was there before me. I mean, every machine I went to was empty, but I don't know if there was someone there 5 minutes before or a half hour before. So I guess maybe this gets back to our inconsistency thing. At the dice table, they're constantly cleaning the table, cleaning the stick, cleaning the place where the players are. Meanwhile, at the slot machines, I do see people walking around and cleaning, but I don't think you have any way of knowing the machine was just cleaned unless you specifically saw an employee cleaning the machine. So now I'm talking Caesars, but I think it's a good barometer because Flamingo and Caesars, Flamingo's a very mid property, right? So I guess maybe it'll be a little bit different at Wynn Las Vegas. I would venture to say that, properties like Wynn and Venetian are going to naturally throw more employees at the issue and just have more employees cleaning. It did not seem that way to me. Craps was great. Tons of sanitizing. I honestly noticed nothing with slots last night.
Yeah, an interesting question from Joanna Thibert. The fact that her and her husband, like me and Suzanne, and anyone that goes there with a partner, sits right beside each other and play the same machine. Do they question if people are crowding around, or is it just given that whoever's around is there together?
There seems to be no issue with any of that at slot machines. I can't tell you exactly why, but I looked around a little bit for that. I didn't notice any issue. I think the big issue is, at table games, you've got the employees there. But, slot machines, you really don't have employees. Now, unfortunately, I didn't hit a hand pay last night, so I can't tell you what that situation is like when they have to do a hand pay. But I didn't notice any. Oh, I noticed one employee come over and empty an ashtray, but just like the regular way they would wipe down. But, honestly, if I was to close my eyes while at the slot machine for a little bit and pretend I'm not in, the world of COVID, I don't think I would have, other than the machines that are turned off, I don't think I really would have noticed a difference.
You need to go and get yourself a hand pay.
Yeah.
Test out this theory.
You do. $100 Wheel of Fortune, Michael.
Yeah.
What was that?
You need to play $100 Wheel of Fortune. He's not a slot player.
Okay, and no, he's not. Susan Zelisko, it says, how busy in general have you found the casinos, Michael, this weekend? If you could say a percentage term, how busy have they been?
I think that the tough part about that is like at any given moment, but I would say Thursday night and Friday night seemed pretty crowded, but not overly crowded. I mean, I know some people were saying, oh, the casinos were packed. It did not seem packed to me. It definitely seemed more crowded on Friday night. But the other issue is too that I was playing late into the night, into the early morning hours. So naturally, the casinos tend to get a little bit less crowded. Also, you have none of the partying and club people who get out of the clubs at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. because there are no clubs. But I would say it's full, but it's not crazy. And last night I made a point of looking to see, how many dice tables were open, and they only had half the dice tables open. So that's probably one of the things that's impacting the table limits is that you have so few players at a table, and I can't tell you, are these tables not open because they don't feel they have enough players, or are these tables not open because they don't have enough employees? Now, I did notice a number of people trying to get on dice games, so I think the guess for me is that they just don't have enough employees to be really dynamic with opening tables the way they would like to, or just calling in staff and saying we need to open more tables tonight. So that was my pulse of it, but it had a pretty decent vibe. But once again, naturally, you've got 3 people at a blackjack table, you've got 6 people at a craps table. Even if the casino is a little bit buzzing around you, even if there are some people lingering who aren't supposed to be lingering, in your physical presence on the table are fewer people. And one thing they're strict about, like they will not allow someone to stand next to you on the rail at craps. So regularly, if you had, a husband and wife, you would have someone next to you on the rail or a friend. They don't do it. So it feels less crowded, even if there are some crowds that are behind you. It definitely feels less crowded just by the distancing. If that makes sense.
Okay, question for you, Michael, from Vegas Introvert. Hi, Vegas Introvert. Where are you going to gamble tonight, Michael, and what kind of cigar will you enjoy?
I said this wasn't going to be a major gambling trip, and I think I've already logged like 14 hours at the dice table, which is why I haven't seen some of the other things that I wanted. So I know this might sound awful strange, but I'm going to have a Cohiba tonight, but I don't think I'm going to gamble at all tonight. I think I'm just going to relax. And I'm sorry, I know that's not what people want to hear, but I feel like I've been here since Thursday night and I've put a lot of time in on the tables.
I'm very disappointed by this. Although, how did you sleep last night, Michael? I think it was 0 hours, right?
Yeah, 0. Last night was 0 hours of sleep. The night before, I think, was a total of 3 hours of sleep. And I don't know what the night before that. I'm losing track. I don't know. I might have. I've had very, very little sleep on this, so I think I deserve a little bit of a rest. And I wanted to really understand what it was like to play dice with a mask in these conditions, what it was like interacting with the dealers.
Can you move your phone? You're using it like a phone. Can you move your camera around? Because all I'm seeing is your hair and your eyes.
Oh, I'm sorry. How's that?
No, that's okay. Keep going. That's better.
It's good. It's because my earphones. But yeah. So yeah, I will tell you one thing that is a problem at playing table games with a mask on is that you really have to shout, especially at craps. You know, the mask muffles the sound, so it's really, really hard to hear things at the table, and that's a little bit of a pain.
Question from Vegas Best Ideas. Hi guys, Michael. So based on your current experience, would you go back again soon, or wait until things are more back to normal as such? What is your overall conclusion in terms of, whether you would go back like next week if you could do?
It's a tough question. I think a lot of it depends on what your Vegas priorities are. My Vegas priorities are gambling and fine dining. So you've got the fine dining restaurants that are less have less people in them than usual. The gambling tables will have some higher limits, but that's going to vary a lot, and I think that's going to change a lot. This is only a couple of days now, so if you're here for gambling and you're here for fine dining, and I think pool, there's no problem with pool. If those are things that you're here for, I don't see why you wouldn't come and do a holiday here. And I guess part of that would be if you play the comp game, if you're going to get better comp offers. To me personally, I don't see there's anything more that you need to do in a Vegas trip than smoke cigars, fine dining, and gambling. To me, that's all you really need to do in a Vegas trip. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on what you regularly do. If you go to clubs, you're not going to want to be here. If you go to pool parties, you're not going to want to be here. But I would say I was more negative about it before I came, but honestly now I would give it a thumbs up to come if your priorities focus around food and gambling.
So just move the camera again, Michael. You're back to. That's it. Perfect. Here's a question, Michael. So if you weren't a gambler and you were going to visit Vegas for being Vegas, for being the town and everything that you like other than gambling, is it worth it, or is it really now for the degenerate youngsters who want to go and gamble there?
So what was the? So is it worth it if you want to do things other than gambling? Was that sort of the question?
Yeah, exactly. Other than gambling, yeah.
Well, I mean, the shows aren't open yet, so you've got no shows right now. So if shows are a thing for you, that's not going to work really well, right? If clubs are a thing for you, that's not going to work well. Poker might be a problem if that's something you're interested in. But other things, think of it this way. A lot of other things are going to be open, right? Like the Mob Museum is going to be open. You can go out to Red Rock Canyon. There's no problem doing a lot of those kind of things. So I think, the helicopter rides are still running. I mean, so I guess you'd have to be more specific on, like, is there something that you come to Vegas for? And if you don't have the ability to do that you're not going to enjoy your trip, because quite honestly, look at it from this perspective. Vegas is like the overload, you know, adult sensory overload. So really, having half of Vegas is still probably triple of most other destinations with regard to things to do. So you might want to think of it a little bit that way.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with that completely. Okay, so we're going to wrap up now. We're on an hour and 8 minutes. And okay, we had a few minutes when you weren't here, Michael. But anyway, so just to sum up, you've had a great time. How many days are you there for? How many have you got left? And what are your plans?
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Yeah, sorry. What are your plans, Michael? Just to sum up.
Just to sum up, I think you really have to. I think one of the things you're really going to have to think about is, what do you want to do in Vegas? You're going to have to make a list of those things. You're going to have to look at how many of those things you're going to still be able to do. Remember, all of the wonderful slot machines that you want to play are pretty much still there. Just a lot of them are turned off. You're going to have to decide. I mean, if you're a planner with hotel reservations, if you want to use the pool, I think you'll be okay. I mean, I would definitely say, in the crowd of people who really want to play slots and really want to gamble, I think you're going to still have a satisfying trip to Vegas. If you're the person who's $20 a day in a slot machine and they do everything in Vegas except gamble, and gamble is really, really minor, then that might be a little bit different, because you're filling your day with everything else, and also things like shows and that. So I think you're really going to have to make your lists and look at it. You're also going to have to check out on a week-by-week basis what's open, what's closed. And like sites like Las Vegas Advisor is keeping a really good list of, you know, things that are open and closed. So that kind of stuff. I also think if you don't rent a car, you're going to want to rent a car. Why are you going to want to rent a car? Because this is a time where maybe some other things that you want to do are closed. So you will want to be able to drive to more places more easily, and maybe to explore some places you would have explored before. And that's another thing that I've said to people. Maybe you'll get a chance to now explore. Maybe you've never gone out to Red Rock before. Well, now will be your time to go out to Red Rock, because you had so many things to do on the Strip. So now you're going to explore some places that you'd never explored before. So I think definitely consider a rental car. And I'm not a fan of rental cars, but I think it might give you more flexibility.
I think that's a really good tip, actually. And you know, certainly when I'm solo, I love a good road trip, wherever it might be. And yeah, Area 51, Red Rock, wherever it is. So I think that's a great idea, than just the Strip or downtown to see. So anyway, we're going to wrap this up now. We had a couple of technical problems, but all in all, some fantastic information, Michael. So thank you so much for that. So just in terms, I know you've got a couple of videos you want to let people know about. I'll put the link up above here now. So can you just where can people find you, and what have you got on your YouTube channel, Michael? So, Michael, where can people find you, and what have you got on your
So people can basically... Did you ask where people could find me?
Yes.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so you can find me. The best place to find me is Travelzork Twitter, and on Facebook, there is a Zorkcast Travelzork Facebook group, and I am more than happy to elaborate on questions. I'm going to try to visit almost all the properties that are open between now and when I leave on Wednesday. If you could you could tweet Travelzork, and we could give you the link for the Facebook group, but that's a great place. But also, questions via Twitter are absolutely welcome. Also, on Travelzork, we just published Sunday news. We do Vegas news every Sunday. You could also feel free to answer questions in those comments. And Mark Meltzer puts that together, and he has, you know, answers to a lot of things. So, you know, any way you want to reach out to us is no problem. And there's also a contact page on the Travelzork website.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michael. And Steve, where can people find you?
Best place for me is on Twitter. I'm also obviously on the Travelzork group, so you can find me on there, at Las Vegas UK on Twitter. Also, we have a podcast that Michael and I do called Zorkcast. We've done a recent episode on casino hosts and why you might need one. So if you're interested, go and give it a listen. They're really good. They're really precise. 20 minutes in length. They're not really long. You can listen to them on your commute, but hopefully really informative. So give them a listen.
Fantastic. Cheers, Steve. And so I'm just going to sign out now. If you're watching this on catch up on the bad bits where we lost Michael, but some fantastic information from Michael. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I think I've really enjoyed, as someone who wasn't really someone that did live streams, I've really enjoyed sort of following through the whole COVID era of Vegas in terms of it's closed, when is it going to open? We've seen downtown open. We've heard from you that on the strip as it's open. So that's me done on live streams in Vegas and COVID. The next time I want to be in Vegas is when I'm there. So I'm sure certainly me and Steve will certainly agree with that. So thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you again. It was really a pleasure.
In the chat. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, thanks a lot, Michael, and I'll speak to you all soon. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.